This is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 352. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker Adam Emmert.
You gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Oh, you gotta have faith, the faith, the faith.
Oh, great. Now we owe George Michael like half the income
royalties
from this show.
Yeah, that's the song that's been running through my head the last couple days since the Monday night game.
Yeah? You're feeling like you need to keep the faith?
Yeah. And I can expound on this throughout the course of the show because it's not the blind, it's all going to be fine faith that like some people might think. It's a little different than that. But I definitely tried to take what happened on Monday night in the last few weeks and kind of just look at it and try to have a realistic perception of what this team is in the moment, what needs to be done, and where my fandom is going.
Okay. Well, there's probably a lot to talk about around that. There's a lot to talk about with this game in particular. Maybe we kind of paint it with broad strokes depending on how things go. But I do want to talk about this game because this was awfully frustrating. Was this the worst game to watch of the Seahawks since, I don't know, Charlie Whitehurst in Cleveland?
Yes, I'm glad that was the exact game that came to mind. It was a notch above that for sure, but it was down in that
It was
category.
A notch above that because DK Metcalf actually scored and the play didn't get called back like Leon Washington's touchdown got called back in that game against the Browns. That's what made that game worse.
Good recall. I had totally forgotten about Leon Washington scoring or potentially scoring in that game.
That just sticks out in my mind.
Okay. I just remembered clipboard Jesus. Like that's it.
Totally ineffective clipboard Jesus.
Yeah. A frustrating game. There's no doubt about it. That should have been a win. It should have been a win. And that was one that was right there for the taking, much like the last few games. It just feels like you're a half a dozen of plays away from being 5-2 instead of 2-5. And that is maddening.
It's very frustrating. Although as much as I say that we could and should have won the game, there's a lot to me that says they didn't do it. They failed in so many areas in this game. The offense failed outside of one big spectacular play. That's, I don't know, maybe you could even call that one singular play lucky. Special teams failed. Jason Myers missing 2 field goals. Michael Dixon's inability to really, stick him down there near the goal line when they're punting at midfield. And really, as great as people are talking up the defense, I think that the defense failed in this game. And it's a failure in terms of what Pete Carroll said going into this game. He said, and I quote, "The challenge is really obvious," when he's talking about stopping Alvin Kamara. And yes, they stopped him in the run game, but they didn't account for him in the passing game, and he tore up the defense, including an entire drive where he caught every single ball apart from one right before the end of the half, and that's how the Saints got their one touchdown in the game.
So if I'm going to start with my anger that I have towards Pete and Ken right now, this would be the number one topic. It's just, how on God's green earth are you not doubling Kamara the entire game when he comes out of the backfield? Who are you afraid of? Callaway? The guy that got on the field that dropped 2 passes and was having hissy fits out there, whatever his name was.
Troutman?
Yeah. Give me a freaking break. Take your chances with those. Sure, you guys beat us. Go for it. If you guys can beat us with them and Jameis pushing the ball a little further downfield, great. But to give him a check down to their best player time and time again without just simply doubling him. And here's the more frustrating part about that. You see him come out in the second half, and guess what they do?
They doubled him.
Oh, so they know how to catfish do it.
Well, that's the other frustrating thing about it, too, is Pete after the game, he's like, well, when you're doubling them, it means you're giving up something. Okay. Yeah. You're giving up a pass rusher. You're giving up the opportunity to have a safety net on the back end with, having to go more man to man on the corners. Okay. You saw that those guys couldn't beat you, and there were a couple plays where they probably could have, and they weren't able to make the catch. And that just goes to show you the guy that you should have been doubling earlier was Kamara.
Absolutely. Like you said, you dare them to beat you with these other players. And part of that dare is, okay, the play design worked. Guy got open. Jameis saw him. Jameis put it on him. But the reason you dare them to actually try to beat you with those guys is because they're inconsistent. That's the difference between, bad to good players and good to great players is consistency. And let them drop a few because they're going to, because they're not great players. So that's what live and die with that instead of living and dying with Alvin Kamara, their best player, getting every touch that he would want in that game and ripping you a new one. I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
I don't understand that. And then when you juxtapose that, the fact that they were able to get the ball to Alvin Kamara over and over and over again, they involved their best player. And what did the Seahawks do? They got the DK. They targeted DK Metcalf, 5 times?
I was going to say it was like 3 times late in the game.
They got him the touchdown, and then they didn't even really look his way until late in the second half. And Tyler Lockett got maybe 3 targets. Yeah, 3 targets to Lockett, 5 targets to Metcalf. 8 combined targets to your 2 best offensive players on the field. And meanwhile, you have Rashad Penny on the field.
Okay. Oh, this is, I've been waiting for this because this is the second most maddening part about the game plan.
6 touches to Rashad Penny. And not only that, you had Alex Collins in the game early, and then he disappeared until midway, late in the third quarter. I don't understand how Rashad Penny gets as many touches almost as targeting your 2 best players on the field.
The other part of that is just inexplicable is, okay, let's say Penny got 6 touches in the game, but it was Alex Collins in there for the most part. And then on a third down to give him a breather, or after he rips off a long one, you bring in Penny for a play, right? You do that 6 times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I get it. Alex Collins is a little banged up and he only has so many carries in him. I get that. So you got to spread it around a little bit. But why on God's green earth would you take an entire stretch, the middle portion of the game, and then just basically bench Alex Collins?
And not only handing the ball to Penny, but putting him in a situation that he's not going to be successful, running him between the guards.
Oh, he had opportunities to be successful. There were holes there. We used to call...
He did miss some holes.
Our Bronco friend, Jared, when they had No Shot Moreno early in his career, we joked. We called him No Hole Moreno.
No Hole Moreno, yeah.
Because he couldn't see it. He couldn't see it. There was almost every run that Penny had, or at least over half of them, there was a clear choice at the line of scrimmage to go left or right. And every time he chose poorly. Like it just run into the backs of guys. And I don't understand how Waldron at that point goes, yeah, okay, well, we'll just stick with him for a while. And then when you juxtapose that with Collins having success for the most part, considering that the Seahawks refused to attack downfield with the passing game, which brings me to the third coaching part that just drives me crazy. They wouldn't attack downfield and they wouldn't attack over the middle. There were no throws over the middle.
Well, I think they tried to attack downfield, and this was my other issue.
Outside the numbers. It was all outside the numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you give the boundary to the corner to use, and then they have safety help over top. And then when you're playing too high as much as they were, those safeties, they just start inching out further and further and further. And so then you got bracketed coverage, and no door you can't get the freaking ball to Lockett or Metcalf at that point. Why is there this whole area of the field in the middle of the field that we don't ever utilized. For the longest time, we thought it was, well, maybe it's because Russ doesn't see the middle of the field well. It's just not a good part of his game. Maybe that's it. Like, we always speculated, right? Well, now I know the freaking answer. It's that they refuse to call plays to attack that part of the field. Watch the Rams run this offense and tell me how much they attack the middle of the field.
All the time.
It's all the time.
All the time. I wonder if there's a reluctance because of the concern for turning over the football, because Pete was super proud of the fact that
when you punt after 3 and outs again and again and again, those are all turnovers.
It doesn't count as a turnover in Pete's mind, and I kind of wish it would. Like even a quarter of a turnover.
At least half.
You said going into this stretch that this time without Russ would tell us a lot about this team. What is it telling you?
So here's some of the good coaching things that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Because as much as I wanted to rip on the team like a lot of people are, and justifiably so, every one of those people have a valid point and concern. I am not trying to take any of that away from them. But we also, to have a balanced view of what is actually going on here, we got to recognize some things. Number one, even though the Saints offense isn't all that great, even though the Steelers offense isn't all that great, and we've seen the Niners, not that great, the defense has turned a bit of a corner. They're still not great, but they're not the abject dumpster fire that they were early on. They're at least better. We've at least figured out corner a little bit better as well. I mean, DJ Reed is playing a lot better. Guys seem to be hitting their run fits a lot better. That sort of thing. The other part, this team is playing really hard and with a lot of heart. And that's something that you have to give the coaches and the players an enormous amount of credit for. It would be really easy to have championship aspirations going into this season and have it go the way it has to this point and just fold your tent. Sure. And that's usually when you can tell a coach really needs to go. Coaching blunders, and then the team gives up on you. And they definitely are not. I think those are big positives that we should take away from what Pete has been able to do.
I think those are, some of the positive things. And really, I mean...
And they've been competitive. That was the last thing.
Yeah.
Is that all these games that we're really frustrated about, you're not the Jets. You're not getting, spanked 54 to -30 like they did this last week. I mean, you're one of the bad teams right now, but you're not one of the horrendous teams. And I know that shouldn't sound like a compliment, but look, I mean, you're at least with Geno, you've been in these games. You've been in the game with a legit chance to win these games going down the stretch here. And look, the last thing, and I'm the last person in the world to whine about referees, but I definitely wanted to talk about them a little bit.
Okay. We will talk penalties in this game because there were a lot. And there's issues with the referees, but I don't think it's why they lost the game. They still had the ability to win this game. I still point to, Jason Myers missed field goals. I still point to lack of aggression when they could have been a little bit more aggressive, knowing how unclutch Geno can be. I want to talk a little bit about Geno Smith because it's weird, right? A couple weeks ago, the entire stadium was chanting Geno's name after a 98-yard drive, and it was unexpected, but it had us thinking that, hey, maybe Geno Smith can do some things in the Shane Waldron offense. After a couple games, not so much. And it has me wondering, though, is it Geno? Is it Shane Waldron? Is Waldron not good at calling plays, or is he constrained by the current playbook?
Is it the playbook? There's got to be plays. Well, I know there's plays to throw the ball around the yard.
There's plays in there that we know are his because we look at it and we go, oh, we've never seen that before. We've never seen the Seahawks run a play like that. We saw it in this game with Everett taking the jet sweep type play and having success with it.
Yeah.
But then there's plays in there where or calls where you go, really, you're just going to run it 7 straight times and not run a play action play at all? Is that a play call thing? Is that a Geno Smith is bad at play action thing? I don't know.
When they chose to run it for that third time in a row on the drive there in the second half.
After the turnover, that one?
And I don't know about you, Brandon, but they come to the line of scrimmage and I'm looking at the screen and I start doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 freaking dudes in the box.
Yeah.
9 dudes. 9. And you just had 2 unsuccessful run plays. And instead of taking the handcuffs off of Geno, you just run it into that packed box again and nothing happens as expected. I was screaming at the screen. You cannot run it here. You cannot run it here. Like you got to check out of this. You have to. So as far as the evaluation of Geno goes, I feel like as far as what I expect out of a backup quarterback to do, he's been competent. He's been competent. Now, has he screwed up at the end of games? Yes. But he's also a backup quarterback. He's not Russell Carrington Wilson.
Yeah.
That's okay. But my expectations are different for Geno.
Right.
He's been competent as a backup quarterback and kept you in games. The problem is that Pete has such little faith in Geno that he has totally handcuffed this offense. Like just the idea that their play calling has been how it's been. That has to be Pete being like, well, we're going to play this close to the vest. We're going to get to the fourth quarter and then we'll go ahead and win it in the end. That's great when you have Russell Wilson, but you have anti-clutch Geno Smith. You need to win the game in the second quarter.
Especially when your defense is putting up a good effort in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Who's putting up a good effort. It's just a backwards way of thinking about how to win the game. I don't understand it. And the thing is let's say Geno isn't even successful with a lot of the throws. Let's say there's a lot of incompletions. How is that really any worse than the 15th run in a row that goes for 1.5 yards to Rashad Penny? How is that any worse? Except for it's better because you're actually showing the defense something different and at least making guys play honest on the defensive end of the ball.
Well, I suppose there are some points in this game where you can point to and say where you look at what Geno did ultimately when he did drop back to pass and put them in a situation where they end up missing field goals after taking a sack or having to kick a long field goal after taking a sack.
Okay, so the pattern that has emerged this season of the Seahawks getting into field goal range and then promptly, especially after turnovers, and then promptly going backwards to make it harder on Myers is beyond maddening. If you want to be conservative and do stupid run a zillion times in a row, do it then. Let's not go backwards 10 yards. Let's not give the opportunity for a penalty holding, trying to pass protect for Geno because he's holding the ball too damn long. Like, what? That's the time to do that. It's when you're on the other end of the field, when you're not in scoring position. Now take a few more risks. Like the risk management is all wonky. It's all wonky. When you're trying to win by just a few points, why do you put yourself in a position to where you're not going to be able to get those gimme points? That's why I don't play Myers that much in this game. I really don't, especially the 53-yard one in bad conditions.
Yeah, the 44-yard one was tough, but that was, again, coming off of 1st and 10, sack for 4 yards, 2nd and 14, sack for -5 yards. That fortunately, oh my gosh, how maddening was this point where it was 3rd and 19 and Geno Smith, I don't know if he was trying to change the play. They got the play called late, calls a timeout on 3rd and 19. Just at that point, take the 5 yards, but then they come back and fortunately Homer runs it up the middle for 14 yards and gets them back into field goal range, only to have it miss from 44 yards. That sequence was my most frustrating point in the game.
The timeout thing, that was one of those that just is even in the first half. And I don't know if the offense believes like maybe they're cold and they're just burning these timeouts to try to keep warm. Like they're just lighting them on fire to try to like stay warm. I don't know. to burn through all those timeouts unnecessarily throughout the entire course of the game. And then even have the commentators in the second half being like, boy, they probably sure wish they had those timeouts. Yeah, really do. Really do. And on a 3rd and 19, you're screwed anyways. Why take the timeout there?
That was my question. What are you doing?
I don't know. It's almost as if the team is paralyzed so much by not making the big mistake that now they're making all the big mistakes. Like the Al Woods penalty. Ooh. Like, come on, man.
The Al Woods penalty, the Marquise Blair penalty. Before we get into the penalties, though, there is one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and it goes back to the 98-yard drive by Geno. When he came into the game against the Rams, and he did that, and he looked like he was throwing the ball over the middle. He was getting rid of it quickly. They had a good mix of run and pass. It made me think that this team had a plan for how they were going to use Geno Smith in the event that they needed to use Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. But now the last 2 games, I see that is not the case. They did not have a plan, because I don't know. Have they changed anything? Because in this game, you saw late developing pass plays, even though you are seeing Kyle Fuller get destroyed. You're seeing Jamarco Jones get destroyed up front. You're seeing a limited amount of play action. I even saw him lining up 5 wide, again, with a backup quality center and left guard. Why would you do that?
Against a good defensive front. Honestly, the Kyle Fuller, him having a really rough game, that's actually my fault. Right before he started just getting trucked like every other play, I had this thought to myself. I didn't say it out loud, so I feels like maybe it shouldn't be all my fault. But I had this thought that, we should talk about Kyle Fuller a little bit on the next pod. Like, I haven't had to like mention his name. He, for all the hand wringing about center and all that, like, he's held up okay.
Well,
he's held up okay.
Okay, I'll own some of that blame then, because I was in the Seahawks Nest Discord saying that, well, at least Kyle Fuller hasn't been a dumpster fire prior to this game.
There you go. And there you go.
Because I had that same thought. I was like, well, he hasn't been great, but he's been, he hasn't been terrible. He's been, right around meh.
Yeah, which is all that you could have hoped and expected out of him at this point in his career and the quality of player that he is. I mean, so I totally mentally jinxed him. I
textually jinxed him in the Discord.
Good. Okay, this feels more like your fault now, so let's leave it with that. Okay. But as far as the game plan, and is it any different? Yeah, it is different for Geno. They literally don't let him throw the ball. And then when they do let him throw the ball, it's in the most unadvantageous
third
situations
and 9. Go
imaginable.
out there and wing it, Geno.
Well, and of course you need to wing it around when it's 3rd and 9, but you never gave him a shot to wing it around when it was, 1st and 10. When you aren't in field goal range. I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And the inability for them to run a screen, the inability to work any sort of short game. I don't understand the aversion, especially in 2021, where all the teams have decided after the end of last season, and you've seen them do it to all the good quarterbacks and high-flying offenses. They're just going to sit in too high and make you go 14 plays.
Right.
That's how it is right now in the league. Why aren't we adjusting to that after now a full season?
A full season. All of last season, all of the start of this season, backup quarterback in. Jackson Bevins on Twitter tweeted, after throwing the touchdown to Metcalf, Geno Smith produced 45 net passing yards on his remaining 26 dropbacks.
I mean, maybe that's why they don't let him throw. Maybe it really is a lack of ability on Geno's part. But you're down your starting running back too, people.
Oh, yeah.
And you're starting left guard.
But you do have to, I think the point is you do have to allow him to attempt to attack the middle of the field, even if you're afraid that that's where majority of potential turnovers come from.
Exactly, because it's not as clear of a picture for a quarterback usually throwing over the middle of the field. However, I think one of the big reasons he's only 45 passing yards and his 20 odd some attempts is because now you're asking him to throw to one area of the field exclusively, and they're squatting on it. So if you let him spread the ball around a little bit, it's going to open up the things that maybe he does better. Maybe he's not great at throwing over the middle. Maybe that's the thing. Okay, fine. But you still need to do it some so that he can hit those outside the numbers plays. Where are the comebacks? Where are the hitches? Where are the quick, easy slants? Where are the layers concepts? Where are the tight ends? And then on top of all of that, you still had a chance.
Yeah, that's what's frustrating about it.
So this is where I want to talk about the refs, because I wanted to talk about their effect on our loss, maybe as a factor, but because you and I are both this way, we don't like to whine about officiating. It's something we've talked about for years and years. And even my neighbor, who the fantasy guy, he watching football, he's like, you know what? You're actually pretty fair about calls. Like, if your team does something, you're like, yeah, you can't be doing that, right? And I try to be objective that way.
And while we have the discussion, I am going to point to a couple of those. Now, one of the penalties I was really happy about was DK Metcalf goading Marshawn Lattimore into an unnecessary roughness call when the Seahawks were backed up on the 1 yard line. Like, we needed that call. I still don't know that if the mental side of the game is in a good place for DK right now, because that could have but in that instance, when you're backed up on the 1, so they call it on DK instead, who gives a crap? Right. So that was a smart play by him, but he was continuing to try to get under Lattimore's skin throughout the game and did a pretty good job. Now, the first call I really wanted to talk about, because there was two that I think really swung the game for the Saints. Yes.
And the DJ Reed pass interference penalty.
Pass interference on 3rd and 7.
Absolute horse.
Catfish!
That was terrible. That was a terrible call.
That's a terrible, objectively terrible call. It extended the drive. They kick a field goal.
Yep.
And then the second was the call on Marquise Blair. Extended the drive. They kick a field goal. Can you call that on Marquise Blair?
Are you talking about the roughing call?
Yes.
See, this is we're on different sides of this one. That was stupid by Marquise Blair. Don't do that.
He was already in motion, like as Jameis is starting. What do you expect him to do? And then Jameis kind of sunk down a little bit, and he caught him just under the chin. He wasn't aiming for his head.
No, he wasn't aiming for his head, but he was essentially spearing him. He was going to hit him hard. And
yes,
you can't hit the quarterback hard and not expect to have a penalty. That's just the way it is.
You got to still be able to play defense. Take the skirt off the freaking quarterback.
I understand that perspective, but you're not going. Yeah. They're always going to call a super hard hit on a quarterback.
That's not true. They're not always going to call a super hard hit, but if you get anywhere in the head area, they're gonna call it.
I will point to another play earlier on in the game where it was a similar situation. I think Kerry Hyder had Jameis Winston down around the feet, and Rasheem Green came in from up above and came in standing up and took him down. And that's how he cleaned up that sack. That ball wasn't going anywhere. Marquise Blair comes in like a missile. Look, 5 years ago, fine. That's probably fine. You're going to get called on that now.
It's tough to take aggressive play out of your players. I more lay that at the hands of the officials, man. Like I just in real time, the first time I saw it, I was stunned when the flag came out.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw the flag coming even before they had the chance to throw it. I'm like, he was going in there way too hard.
I guess. I mean, it just makes it impossible for defenders. But those two calls were just, I think the Blair one was a borderline call. Could it be called? Yes. That one I'm not quite as mad about, but it did extend the drive and they get a field goal.
The one I'm more mad about was the not calling false start on the 4th and 1.
Good God. I mean, that was 2 dudes false started. 2.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
I don't know.
In the call on Al Woods was absolutely the correct call. They have to call that. But it it was such a dumb penalty and such an important part of the game.
And part of that goes on Puna flinching too when he's looking at the ball. So if you're Al Woods and you're going off the dude next to you who's looking at the ball,
don't go off the dude next to you. That's football 101. You watch the ball, especially when you're playing in Seattle on defense and the noise is off the charts. You have to watch the ball. And not only that, but like the odds of blocking a kick are so astronomically low. Like that is a dumb risk to take. Again, another area of poor risk management. The situational football knowledge there is just, it was just dumb. And honestly, I think the second Al Woods did it, it looked like look at his face. It just looked like he was like, I can't believe I've played this long in the league and just did that. Like that was me. Uh-huh. How did I do that? The disbelief he had in himself was evident.
Because at what point was that? What did that end up leading to?
It gave him a first down and they continued down the field. They made an easier field goal.
Yeah, because they only scored the one touchdown. So it was an easier.
And the clock continued to run.
Oh, that was the big part of it too, because that would have given them, a lot more clock.
A lot more clock. And when you burn all your timeouts for like no reason because you can't get a freaking play call in
on 3rd
and we're doing that again for another year. Yeah. Like give me a break. You gotta give yourself a chance.
Yeah. It would have been a 41-yard field goal. Instead it was a 33-yarder.
Yeah. And that's why I don't get on Myers so hard. Like if he ends up on the 44-yarder, kicking a 30 to 35-yarder instead, that's way more of a gimme. Way more. You get out past 40, and that's when things start to get a little dicey.
Yeah, they were on the New Orleans 23 after hitting Freddie Swain for 28 yards. This was before that field goal drive by the Saints. So on 1st and 10 at the New Orleans 23, it was Alex Collins to the left for -1. Demario Davis again. Demario Davis was all over the field in that second half, especially.
Yeah.
Then Geno hit Freddie Swain, no gain, and then sacked for -11, which took the field goal from a 41-yarder to a 53-yarder.
Do you want to make life easier for Demario Davis? Let me tell you how you do that if you're an offense. You do nothing in the short middle of the field. You do nothing there in the passing game. Not one thing. And guess what he gets to do then?
Yeah.
Freaking tee off on running backs and quarterbacks the entire time. And dump truck your mediocre center at best. Once he got into the locker room, the coaches probably looked at him and been like, I don't even know why you're bothering with, even if they run play action, like, don't worry about it. Like, they're not throwing there. So they're not even going to run a route there. Just tee off. I mean, talk about Tom Brady during the telecast talking about how, defensive players aren't all that smart. All they do is like chase cars. Well, if that's the case, then you just made it real easy because Demario Davis now knows exactly which car to tee off on.
Uh-huh.
Like you just made it infinitely simpler for him.
Well, there you go. That explains why he had an outstanding day.
It certainly helped.
Made it easy for him
too.
Yeah, this was
there for the taking. It turned out to be a puddle of sad catfish. And it just, and you watch it. I kind of do want to get to the discussion of 2-5, where that leaves us and everything. And because of all of the talk throughout the telecast about how this game was to save the season. If you believe that, this can't be your game plan. This can't be the way you play ball. It just can't. Like you gotta play like it's win or go home. Like it's a playoff game. If you believe that 2-5 is the end of your season.
And that kind of leads me into the thinking of, because I've been trying to think of what is the best possible outcome going forward. Is the best outcome firing all the coaching staff and turning this team completely over, burning it all down and starting over? I don't think that firing everyone actually produces the best outcome. Can it get to the point to where Pete Carroll allows more integration? Because I do think that this, When I asked you before about this playbook and, whether Waldron's bad at calling plays or whether he's constrained by the current playbook, I just because I see a lot of the offense that we've seen for so much time under Pete Carroll. There is a lot of Pete Carroll offense in this that isn't going away. And so I hope that it gets to the point where Pete allows more integration of what maybe Shane Waldron has in mind for the offense. Because I think that's what leads to the best outcome.
It would. I think allowing the offense to play with all the clubs in the bag rather than just walking out on the course like you're catfish tin cup with a 7-iron and just trying to, play the whole course with a 7-iron. Like that's what we're doing right now. It doesn't make any sense. And Pete, I know he comes from the Bud Grant school of thought and all of that. He's talks about him being a mentor all the time. And I think it was Bud Grant who once said, when you throw the ball, there are 3 possible outcomes and 2 of them are bad.
Right.
And I think that's how Pete thinks about it, especially throwing the ball over the middle. It terrifies him.
When you have a game like this, where the defense does so well on 3rd down at stopping the other team, where the defense gets a turnover, you win the turnover battle. All these things that Pete believes that if you do them, you win the game, and then you don't win the game. How many times does that have to happen for Pete to go, well, maybe there's another way? I don't know if there is a number that you could put to that. But it does have him thinking. I listened to him in his press conference this week, and he's like, man, I remember that season back when we were 2-5 at USC, my first year there. And, that wasn't fun. You could see this week. Shoot, we even heard him. I'll have to pull up the clip because he, when he talked about what Russ means to this team, we've never heard Pete talk like that before.
No, it's a great clip. Let's play that.
I've been here a long time, and if we didn't have Russell, I probably wouldn't have been here a long time. Because think of all the magic that he's created in the years. He's got numbers and stats in fourth quarter, this is and that's and all that stuff. One of the winningest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, and it'll be really fun when he comes back and plays football again for us this year. And we owe a tremendous amount. You can see how hard it is. All of these games, the Rams game, the what was the next one? The Steelers in this one. Russell's a factor. He's a fantastic positive factor and always has been. And those are exactly his time. That's his time. And that's when he shines. So, we miss him. And in the meantime, we're going to keep fighting and clawing and doing everything we can.
You know what that reminded me of, that particular clip? Remember when the community of Cleveland got together and they sang that Please Stay LeBron song? Was that Pete Carroll saying, please stay, Russ, don't leave me?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. And I like that clip. That's the exact one I was thinking of. Unfortunately, it cut off the first 10 seconds of when he started talking. And I found that to be the more interesting part of the entire quote, because the reporter asks him, okay, with Russ being the fourth quarter wizard, do you miss him? And Pete starts to talk and kind of clams up for a second and goes, and then he kind of smiles and laughs and then kind of shifts his whole body weight to one side of the podium and starts it out with, let me put it to you like this.
Okay, well, here,
and
let's go back.
Okay,
because I think that is probably some important context that's being left off of that. And so, yeah, let's go back and hear that part of it.
If say it this way, if I've been here a long time, and if we didn't have Russell, I probably wouldn't have been here a long time. Because think of all the magic that he's created in the years. He's got numbers and stats in fourth quarter, this is and that's and all that stuff. One of the winningest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, and it'll be really fun when he comes back and plays football again for us this year.
Yeah.
And there's some body language that you miss out on too, and just hearing the audio.
To me. It was fascinating to me when I watched when you watch somebody process an answer in real time and you can see the truth run across their face, to me, and everybody can have a different take on this and tell me I'm dead ass wrong, but to me, that was the moment that Pete thought to himself, well, catfish, I think I need to change my way of thinking and really embrace this Russ-centric kind of thing, because golly, I wouldn't have been here as long as I have. I wouldn't have been here if it hadn't been for us. And you can see him when it clicked, when he was like, yeah, I think it's probably time to embrace it, is the chuckle. And then he goes, well, then let me put it to you like this. And he kind of puts his finger down on the podium. It was like the aha moment happened. At least that's what I'm hoping. And I just felt it in that moment. Is that how it came across to you?
I had that similar type of feeling that there was an epiphany there, because yeah, if you put it in the context of two back-to-back games where they very much played that Pete Carroll style, protect the ball, run the football, like almost to a point of where you're saying, maybe let's not run it this much. But it did turn, it turned toward that way after the second quarter of the Pittsburgh game, where they were trying to throw it, nothing was happening, and they started running the ball and having a little bit of success. And so I think he probably went into this game thinking, well, we dominated that Pittsburgh defensive line. This New Orleans defensive line is good too. We can dominate them. And, we'll
cram it down their throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Impose our will.
But unfortunately, they started doing it and had some success, and then went away from the running back that has good feet and vision, and then put in the guy coming fresh off an injury who knows how much practice he's had, who has zero history in the NFL of being an effective runner.
Yeah, it's tough to put your faith in that too. Now Collins is dealing with some injury himself, so there may have been some of that wanting to save him for the second half type of aspect.
Fine. Put in DJ Dallas.
Yeah.
Just not Penny. Like, we've been over this. But
my complaint would have been the same, though, if DJ Dallas would have gotten 6 carries and not targeted guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett more.
That's fair. That's totally fair. But that answer, I think, was very telling. And I did see the alert of Pete's comment on my phone before I listened to it. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he's just giving lip service to it. But it was like, oh, yeah, I'm in trouble here. And up until this game, I felt like I had enough tricks in my bag to get us through these games without Russ, to put us in a position to where Russ can come in and take us to that next level and get us into the wild card. And now the chances are a fair amount slimmer, and you can see Pete having the realization of, oh, this could be the beginning of the end.
Well, the thing is going into this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they play the same way that they did against these last two teams, now I know Jacksonville has one of the league worst defenses, so I don't expect the same outcome. But if they play similarly on offense, I think they can lose this game just as easy, because one of the things that I've seen from Jacksonville is playing good teams. They've been up on good teams early, and it's not until the fourth quarter to where they're losing games. And so if you're behind and you're expecting Geno Smith to go back out there in the fourth quarter once again and try and win this game for you, I can see them losing this game very easily to the Jaguars.
And you have to understand, too, with the Jaguars team, they do have Trevor Lawrence back there. And while he's going through his rookie pains and all of that, and maybe suffering through a head coach who's over his skis and all of those things, he's still going to give you 1 to 2, like, wow, talented, get you over the hump kind of throws throughout the game. Geno has that ability in him as well. Let's not forget he was a high draft pick and all that stuff. But you got to give him some opportunities. So no, you can't play exactly the same way. However, because their defense is poor, you should have a lot more success running the football. And then once you're there, be able to run some play action and maybe some screens and things of that nature. And you'll actually put up some points. But I would think that this defense should be able to contain Jacksonville similarly to the way that they contain the Steelers and the Saints. Both those offenses at this point in time, while not good, better than Jacksonville's.
James Robinson is a really good back. They do have to focus on him. He's not Alvin Kamara level of back, but still a guy that you have to be concerned about.
He's an NFL player for a reason.
I think he's one of the better guys at running back. And so you have to be concerned about him. I really do think that it's going to be a turnover type issue. If Jacksonville continues to turn the ball over at the level that they're turning it over, and they're not really creating turnovers either, but they're also playing, if they start to take a little bit more chances in this game, thinking that they need to do that, then it could put them in a tough spot. But at the same time, I do want them taking more chances. The ironic part is this was the game I would want to have seen more chances because you needed to take them because of the quality of opponent. Whereas this game plan you just trotted out there against the Jags, I'm far more comfortable with doing it there. So again, now we're going to be flip-flopping the risk management. And if you got one win out of the two games between the Steelers and the Saints, I'd feel a lot better than having to need this win going into the bye week.
So there's all that chatter on the broadcast that this is the season. You're here to save the season. And in my mind, I'm thinking pump the brakes because it's next week. Next week is the game to save the season, to have any sort of hope. This is the one. You have to get the Jags. You have to. You can go into your bye week and then hope on everything that is holy that Russell Wilson can grip a football and throw it effectively by then. Like, that's it. Like, this is it right here.
You can say it is right here, but you can continue to say this is it right here as long as teams like the Vikings keep losing, the Bears keep losing, the Falcons keep losing. Panthers, well, the Panthers and the Falcons play, so one of those teams is going to win. But long term, I don't see either of those teams really having success. So you just have to keep pace with teams like the Vikings and the Bears and the Niners.
This is where I was also going to go with this 2-5 you're playing for the season against the Saints, because I heard Sam Acho talk about this a few weeks ago on whatever show he's on with Marcellus Wiley. Speak Your Mind or whatever it's called. I don't know.
Everybody has a podcast now.
No, this is a network television show.
Oh, it's a legit show. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Sam Acho was talking about it and he's like, sure, the division's gone. Like that's done now. And that's okay. He's like, but what you're trying to do is do just like you described. Can you be better at the end of the day, record wise, than Vikings, Bears, Falcons? That is absolutely 100% within range. And then also with that extra game, doesn't it feel like the season is exponentially longer in a lot of ways? Yeah. Like it just does. It just feels like there's so much more football, even though you're already 7 games in. It really does. And not only that, but you have the opportunity to play the Cards twice, the Rams again, right? And the Niners one more time, who are in freaking free fall. If you want to wring your hands as a Seahawks fan and like be like, I hate this team, I don't want anything to do with them anymore, try being a Niners fan right now.
Right. We gave up all these picks for Trey Lance, and Jimmy Garoppolo still sucks.
Yeah. And yeah, Trey Lance is
and Kyle Shanahan was supposed to be able to get the job done even with Jimmy Garoppolo and this defense.
Yeah, the defense is healthier. And just as long as he has Jimmy G, like everything's fine. We can save some Niners talk for the second half of the show. But
okay.
This isn't, the season's not over. There is still a decent chance. Like when I say that, 40% maybe, between 40 and 50% chance that you can make the playoffs still. It's there, but it all is going to hinge on, can you get this win against the Jags? And then can Russell grip the football after the bye? And if those things happen, you have a legit shot.
The season hinges on the hinge of Russell's middle finger.
Yeah, for reals. For reals. And the thing is, too, is if we think about big picture, if we go 10,000 foot view and the future of this team and everything, the best case scenario at this point would be for Russ to come back after the bye, for them to beat the Jags, Russ come back after the bye, and the defense continue to play decent and Russ to play hero ball down the stretch and drag this team into the playoffs and get a win. If that happens, there is no way on God's green earth that the Seahawks don't capitulate everything to Russ if they haven't already. And for Pete to either be gone, which I'm not rooting for, or Pete to have had that aha moment here this last week and change things up.
Yeah. I do think that the best outcome, again, overall, is Pete having that epiphany and being that guy who, because he is so good at keeping the team together. That's what we've seen over these last couple weeks. Yes. He's kept the team together in a very difficult situation.
Yep. And they've been highly competitive. Yeah. Highly competitive. Missing your entire starting backfield. And nobody talks about that, really. I mean, they talk about the Russ injury, but how many times did Chris Carson's name get uttered throughout the game? Basically none.
I think they mentioned him once. Was there something I missed?
I think they mentioned him legitimately once. Just that, oh yeah, and he's on IR. Like, I mean, that's a big deal. It's a big freaking deal.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing how important he is, but you're also seeing some of the reasons why in the offseason you're saying, well, that's probably not a guy that you want to pay big money to and sign long term. And they got him for the type of deal that it worked out sense. Ultimately. It made sense.
I'm still fine with the deal. And then the other thing, missing Damien Lewis is a gigantic blow as well. And they just don't talk about it. I mean, when you hear about the Niners, it's all about their injuries for the millionth freaking time. The soap opera that is that. You know, one team has, like the Cardinals, like they go into game tonight without JJ Watt, and you would think that like they're playing with both arms tied behind their back and their left leg amputated at the knee.
That'll be the excuse. That would give them the excuse if they ultimately lose.
Yeah. I'm not seeing the score right now. I'm not watching it at all.
Yeah, I'm not either, so I have no clue. But it lets you know when we're recording, people.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're wading our way into NFC West talk anyway, so why don't we get there?
All right. Second half of the show. Here we come with our official NFC West segment.
Here it is. The never done before until this season, our segment discussing the NFC West. It tickles me every time we get to this part of the show.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I get to point and laugh at the 49ers. Like, that's really fun because it's much more bleak for them. If this doesn't get at least a little better for them, I mean, Shanahan is probably gone.
And the thing is that when they've had injuries and had bad seasons in the past, fans have been able to say, well, we're going to get a top 10 pick. We'll probably get another stud defensive lineman. The defense will continue to be incredibly dominant. That's not going to happen this year.
It's definitely not. And to further that point, the Rams are next season away from that. Like that's coming for them. Like Stafford is not going to play well for another 3 years. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And salary is going to continue to impact that team.
And his body can't hold up. We know where he is physically at this point in his career. It's a true fact of it.
Well, it's like with JJ Watt. I think we all went into the season and it stinks because, you know, JJ Watt, incredibly talented, but he's one of those guys that you look at him and you say, this could have been one of the most dominant defensive players ever. And it just, the injuries are so consistent that you can count on him year after year.
Yeah, he's at that stage of his career where, you know, his body just can't do it for 17 weeks. And I never root for that for a guy except for Kyler Murray, which we all know, because I said this to somebody today, man, like, mark my words. The Cardinal 5-game skid is coming. The end of the season implosion is coming. It absolutely will. When you build your big additions to your team that has kind of put you over the top, has been an ancient AJ Green, an ancient JJ Watt, and Rodney Hudson hurt already. And then you have a quarterback who literally hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season his entire career. Like, this is happening. This is happening. It's a certainty.
And he plays way too reckless. I know there's people out there going, oh, well, he always misses getting the big hit. Well, until he gets the big hit. Doesn't. Because, there's times where he makes some incredible moments happen, but dude is running around the middle of the field and he can be blindsided acting like that.
Here's the thing. It doesn't even take the big hit when you're built as slightly as Kyler is. It can be the standard sack. It can be an offensive lineman getting shoved back into him and rolling up on his ankles. Like, it's just, he's not built for it. He's just not. He's a tremendous talent. He really is. I mean, I can't crap on him that way anymore. Like, I mean, we're get to the point now to where I have to be honest about that. But health is a part of talent. And it's going to come back to bite them this year. It always does, and it's going to again.
They're probably going to make the playoffs, though. I mean, 7-0, they put themselves in a pretty good spot. They can weather a 5-game slide even.
Yes. I do believe that they will make the playoffs. I'm not trying to say that. That would be beyond homerish, and I know we already are homerish. That'd be even further over the line. However, I will say this about the Rams. This year, they're going to keep trucking along, and they're going to be one of the teams in the playoffs that you look at and go, yeah, maybe they could do it. It is what it is. And that's fine. And if I'm going to be realistic, I have to say that about the catfish Rams.
This 5-game slide, maybe this is the start of it. Packers are up 10-7 at halftime.
Yeah. I was told by my fantasy neighbor today too that the Packers were going to get blown out in this game, and I said there is 0% chance that happens. 0. Yeah,
I understand Devontae Adams is out. They have another one of their receivers out. They still have Aaron Rodgers.
And the Cards are the Cards. They're basically the Cougs of the NFC West.
The thing about the Cards being the Cards, though, is that part of the Cards being the Cards is Kyler Murray just throwing it to DeAndre Hopkins' direction and him being able to come up with the football.
Yeah, D-Hop down there somewhere. That's not really a talent. That's
the incredible thing about watching them play. It's that, that must be fun to be Kyler Murray and just being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, just throw 5-yard out, 5-yard out, 5-yard out, and then just go, we need to stretch the defense. Just run down there. I'll just huck it.
And not having to worry about interception at all. Like, it'll either not get caught or it'll get caught by my guy.
Okay. So go Pack, go.
I suppose. At 6-1, it's not an easy team to root for either right now, is it?
No.
Other than just hoping that they continue to roll through all of those other teams in the North so that the Seahawks can be that much more competitive when it comes to the final wild card spot.
Yes. So that's what we're rooting for there for sure.
That's it. All right. Time to welcome some new members of the flock.
It's happening?
Well, maybe not any new members, but some current members who have made more significant pledges.
Okay. I'll take that as a win.
Starting off with executive producers DCH, Dustin Mock, Brian Shaw, Kevin Watterson, Jake Burdine, and Gordon Smith. And coming in, bumping up his pledge from $1 a month to a full 18 Australian dollars a year, Ben Courtlever.
Are Australian dollars worth more or less than American dollars?
They are worth less a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was guessing
the
more.
18 is equivalent to R12.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So he nailed it. Yeah.
I think awesome. I think Patreon does a special little conversion thing.
Like math?
Yeah, they do all the math for us. So that way, if you want to come in at 12 US, they do that conversion for you.
That's very very smart by the Patreon people with their math skills. Well done.
So thanks to Ben for coming in, and thanks to Craig Hirsch, who has been with us for a long, long time.
Yes, he has.
He was in at 20. He's upped it to 25. Thanks to Craig Hirsch.
See, Craig, he's actually getting us to one of the other points I want to talk about, why I was singing at the start of the podcast, because I was texting back and forth with the DCH a little bit during the game, and his frustration is palpable, and again, rightfully so. But I think
I don't think we saw him in the Discord this last week, even.
Well, no, I think that's mainly because he and I were texting back and forth quite a bit. So I just, and this isn't directed at him at all, but just kind of to the fan base as a whole, just seeing the comments and, not necessarily in our flock, but with other 12s and that sort of thing. Now's not the time to lose faith in your team and lose your faith in wanting to be a Seahawks fan and start to turn your back on the fandom. If you're a real fan, and we've talked about this for a long ass time, people asking us, during the heyday of the Legion of Boom, that we're coming on board and we're new. It's just, am I a bandwagon fan? Am I? Well, here's the time, guys. You want to not be a bandwagon fan? You continue being a fan and you try to support the team as best you can.
Yeah. And man, that was one of the inspiring things to me too, with the people that were in the Discord. The crowd was a little bit smaller than usual in the Discord this past week, but
understandable.
After that turnover, like everybody was like, okay, here we go. Seahawks got the turnover. This is their moment. Geno's, got to get it done. We believe.
Absolutely. And going into this Jags game with Russ coming back after that, like, it's time. Have faith, people. Like, have some hope. It's okay to have hope, even if it gets doused. Like, if you're a real fan, you keep that hope alive.
Yes, this is the time to have hope, because look, if you're putting all of your hope in I hope everybody gets fired in the middle of the season basket, well, then the season's pretty much over anyway, and you're not going anywhere for the rest of the season as is. So it's really, you can hope for the season to end now, or you can just get through it and get to the end of the season, because that's the more likely outcome anyway. And then you can, hope better.
Look, Jody Allen is not going to fire Pete Carroll in the middle of the season. That is not happening. It's not happening. And for everything Pete has done for this franchise up to this point, to be rooting for him to be fired now, like, come on now. Like, you got to get behind your coach. It's time to build him up. He needs the extra help now, too.
I mean, the alternative argument is that, well, if Russ comes in and saves his butt and takes him to the playoffs, and the team is stuck with Pete then, and I don't want to be stuck with him.
Well, I don't want to be stuck with a non-changing Pete, but Pete's a dynamic guy. And I think if that's the way the season goes, like when they have their off-season meeting and he sits down with Russ, I mean, doesn't Russ just look at him and be like, we got to do this my way now, so... And Pete would just have to go, yeah. That would have to be the way that goes.
I feel like it has to go that way just over the bye week. This is a good time to have the bye week.
Yeah. And, you often see those crazy turnarounds and crazy seasons that, start off terrible, and then all of a sudden a team comes out of nowhere. A lot of times it comes around after their bye. There's a player meeting and some come to Jesus talk and the extra time to, self-scout and all that. It does make sense that would be a place to where you could see that turnaround and be fired up. And how much more fired up would you be to see this team compete hard down the stretch and at least be close to getting in the playoffs, and not have, how gut-wrenching would it be to have the dumpster fire go down the stretch, Pete get fired, and then you watch your top 10 pick be selected by the New York Football Jets? That's more miserable.
Yeah.
That's more miserable.
I don't want a top 10 pick in the second round. That's not.
Well, I do, but not like that.
No. Let's take a look at the Pick'em League. There's some people doing well. Largent at Arms coming in at number 1. And I see that the system correctly picked Largent at Arms as the winner, because the other person who picked 11 picks correctly, I haven't gone back in yet to change all the jerks who picked the Saints over the Seahawks. But G. Haley was one of those. coming in at 11 picks right, but still the system correctly. I know it defaults to the winner of who picked the score of the Monday Night Football game, but yes.
Gee, what are you doing, dude? How many people incorrectly picked this Seahawks
Oh gosh, you're going to make me actually look that up?
No, just give me a ballpark.
I know. I just looked at the top scores, and that was the one that I saw that was toward the top. So I didn't go in depth looking at it, but I do know Largent at Arms sitting at number 1. Who do we got for? I'm sure it's got to be Peaceful Easily Feeling still at the top here. Of course, now it's going super slow.
Well, I would just say this: if it's more than 10 people that incorrectly picked the Seahawks game, the Pick'em League's over. It's done. We're shutting it down. Like I'm over it. We gave you a warning last week. Not counting the BFT. The BFT can do what he wants.
I see. If the BFT were the only team who had picked the Saints in this game against the Seahawks last week, then I wouldn't even go in there and change it.
Yeah. No. Definitely not.
How many other non-Seahawks fans do you think are in our Pick'em League?
I don't know, moderator. How many did you let in?
Well, by my count right now, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gosh, did about 7 or 8? It probably looks like about 7 or 8, so it hasn't crossed double digits.
Okay, you're 2 people away from this either being shut down or we're having a purge. We're gonna go full on purge. Okay, Anchorman style.
The Easily Largent helmet goes to next year.
Yeah,
I'll keep it at my house another year. I have no problem with this.
Yeah, I think it would look all right. I think it would fit in there nicely.
There you go. And you know what?
You would deserve it for having to deal with having to change all those picks as much as you've had.
You know what? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just mine.
I kind of feel like you might have earned it. I don't think I can even argue with you.
And for those people who are like, oh, but you're penalizing the rest of us because, a handful of people did it wrong.
Yeah, welcome to the real world.
And this is how it works in the military. And, I went through boot camp. I know how it is.
Yeah. So get your shit together.
Everybody's getting punished. Except for me, who gets to keep the helmet.
That's right, because you're in charge. And you never have to
Oh, no, the drill instructor isn't down there doing push-ups.
No.
All right. Peaceful Easily Feeling still up on top, but only 1 ahead of Honey Hole Hawk. Got Ashton Winneman up there. Darth Jamal making an appearance here in the top 5. Hurricane Seahawks. Got a few more other people here with 72 correct, but yeah.
Well, so you guys, you can help police this as well. I mean, aren't there comments on the Pick'em League?
Aren't there? Well, hey, you've probably invited a friend. Say, just do a buddy check.
There we go. That's the first step. If you don't want the purge, you need to have a buddy check.
There you go.
Week. Yeah.
And if your buddy is not listening into the show, let him know. Say, hey, we're still in on this team, right? You're still, here's a podcast you need to listen to.
Quit picking wrong and do better.
Let's get into do better. But first, got a mailbag. Oh, and it is your final moments at tinypiecesofseahawksstuff.com for the DK Metcalf Tiny Piece of Seahawks jersey. So tinypiecesofseahawksstuff.com. Also, want to say thanks to everybody who is coming in at $12 for the month and above at the end of the show. And if you want to get in the flock, you can go to getintheflock.com. Mailbag time.
No, wait, I have a question.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So the piece of jersey that you have there from DK, was that game worn, or do we know if maybe he had one of 4 ladies wear it during a bedroom experience? Do we know that?
It says the enclosed player worn material is guaranteed. So it was definitely worn by DK and may or may not have been worn by multiple ladies in the bedroom at the same time.
Yeah. I almost wanted to do that for my do better, but he really didn't do anything wrong. I mean, he's a single dude. He can kind of do what he wants, but come on, man. You got to realize, these internet chicks are going to put you on blast, dude. You got to force them better.
I did.
If you really are into a foursome, take up golf. Okay.
Did you see Nick Ballor's comment?
No. Oh my God. This is probably priceless. I'm ready.
Okay. He went to the golf mode too.
Oh, see, I knew he and I were like, connected.
He said, I guess it's a bad time to ask if you want to be our fourth at Chambers Bay next week. I thought I'd ask a teammate and not only fans.
Oh, Nick Ballore. That is gold. That is gold.
Is OnlyFans where you go for that stuff? Is that where
I
DK?
don't know.
Is that where DK's hanging out?
I guess. I have no idea, dude.
Yeah, that was my Wednesday evening of what is all this DK talk? I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Did you look up the chick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you disappointed?
Well, it depends on if you saw the initial tweet or the tweet below it.
Okay.
Because
I don't know.
It was the Seattle Sports on Tap tweet.
Okay.
And the first picture was not her. Apparently.
Okay. Because I was like, dude, what are we doing? Like, you can find that girl like anywhere. I mean, come on, man. You're a human bat suit.
No, the lovely lady who was down there a little bit further when somebody pointed out the incorrect photo was
slightly more attractive. Good.
Not that that's what we're about on the show.
Well, it's just if you're going for a member of a foursome, I would think that you're not judging based on personality. You know what I'm saying?
If that's what you're into,
yeah,
it's probably
yeah.
But really, by the time you get to that many anyway, does it?
I don't know.
Does it matter?
Know. I don't know. I never had that sort of game. So I couldn't say.
This leads us perfectly into the email from John Davison.
Fantastic. What does the Bard have to say?
Hi, fellas. Thought I would drop you a line as I stood aside last week to let Barry have his say. He got in touch for an explanation, but I had just about no idea like him after you had ceased your ramblings. Perhaps it was an interesting diversion from watching the Hawks. Holy catfish! Another loss. What it did do, though, was it extinguished my last few shreds of hope, so that anything good that happens will be a bonus. I still don't think we're a bad side, but the bonehead penalties kill us. My coaching knowledge is not great either, but I did know there was a screen pass to Kamara coming in the next 3 plays. Hint to Norton. So moving on, surely we can thrash the Jags and work on our game. If you want good value, we are now 66-1 for the Super Bowl. But I would advise using Monopoly money to bet with. Go Hawks, from John.
Yeah,
now, when John signs it as John and not the Bard, do I do the voice? Do I always do the voice for John, or only when he signs it as the Bard?
John's earned the voice every time for life.
All right.
Yeah.
Unless John lets me know differently.
Oh, yeah. If his feelings change about it. If he just is like, I don't really sound like that. I'm much more dapper. And he would prefer a better representation or no representation, just in our own voice.
Yeah.
Then, okay. But until the Bard makes his mind up or changes his mind, it stays.
There it is.
Unfortunately for you. I'm glad that got put on your shoulders, by the way.
Oh, that's fine, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, it is fine. I'm really happy about this.
All right. Well, John, was there anything that we needed to answer him on?
I liked him the way that he's managing expectations, because that's how I lived my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, everything is a bonus if you just think everything's going to be catfish. And you might say that's kind of a dark place to be, but then you're always delightfully surprised.
That's probably the best way to go about this.
Yeah.
On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better this week was saved on my phone, and it currently will not bring up saved stories on the Apple News app. I don't know what's wrong with it. So I'm calling it audible, and my do better this week is for me, because I went down to check on our precious bees. I was very fired up about the bees. You guys know I've been fired up about the bees. And to get them moved to a sunnier spot for the winter, get them winterized. I checked on them about 2 weeks ago. Everything was fine. And then I got to the hive today, and I just found thousands of dead bees and yellow jackets rampaging the now abandoned hive.
Oh,
It was depressing because I wanted the opportunity to try to overwinter bees and get that experience, because it's hard, especially when you live, in a very cold, elevated climate in the mountains. So I just wanted to see if I could do it and gain that experience. But no, I just neglected them way too much and then let them die. I let my ladies die, Brandon. And these beautiful ladies that gave me literally the nectar of the gods, I let them die. And so me, do better.
The thing is that as sad as it is, I was looking at those jars of honey, and those are some beautiful jars of honey.
So,
although something bad happened, something good happened.
Yeah, and that will bring me right to my better at life.
All right. Well, my do better this week, I'm doing a Halloween related do better, because I heard from Mike Leach, the former coach of the, let's see, what did he coach?
All the teams.
The Cougars.
Yeah.
He's
Texas
but he
Tech,
even coached
Cougars.
one of the Washington teams.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's coaching now, but he had a take about Halloween candy after his game this week.
We talked about on the broadcast how you hate candy corn. What's your favorite Halloween
candy corn? I mean, I completely hate candy corn. When I was a kid, gummy bears. Let's see, gummy bears for sure.
Sour or regular?
The Haribo. It's got to be the Haribo ones. And then the other thing I like is when they used to have the sprees in a box. Outstanding. You have to go to the dollar store to find it, but I do. And then the latest, there's still candy innovation, although a while back I found that Europe had better candy than we did overall, because they have gummy everything. And then, they have those Nerds clusters, which is new.
The gummy.
Yeah, which is good. The Nerds clusters is good. And then if you go chocolate, probably Almond Joy.
Love it. Hopefully you'll get some of that next week.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks, Coach.
He spends nearly a minute breaking down all of the fruit flavored candy that he enjoys, which is fine. Like he's pretty well on point with his, spree. Or they're good. Gummy bears are good. But then he's asked about
one specifically. Yeah.
Right. And but then he saves one take at the end for the chocolate fans out there. And he says, if you're going to do chocolate, probably Almond Joy.
Yeah, nailed it.
No,
Almond Joy is delicious.
Oh, look, hey.
In fact, me and Brittany thought she had a bag of Halloween candy, a rando bag.
Yeah.
That has all the different ones. Guess what disappeared first?
That was your go-to?
That was our biggest point of contention, is who's eating the freaking Almond Joys.
Wow. That was the first, because to me, look, Almond Joy is fine. It's good. I'm like,
fine?
It will not
fine.
be, it's fine.
Just fine?
Yes, it's just fine.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Because I don't even think it's a top 5. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, number 1. I feel like that should go without saying. You know me.
Yeah. Oh, can I add a personal anecdote to that real quick?
You've told this anecdote on the show before, but yes.
Oh, never mind.
When we were at the cabin and down at the lake, and I opened up the fridge, and
a huge fridge packed full of all sorts of
and
of
my
stuff.
Eyeballs went immediately to the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups in the drawer.
That was in a drawer vertically. He's kind of half behind a thing of buns or something. You found it. It was amazing.
So yes, my eyeballs go straight to the peanut butter cups. That's me. Snickers, okay. Twix, Take 5, which is extremely underrated. M&M's, Milky Way, all of those. I go through all of those. Kit Kat. I even go Kit Kat before I get to Almond Joy.
No, nor Milky Way. You don't go Milky Way.
I'll put you in this too. Mike Leach, Adam Emmer, do better.
Okay, I thought you were going to get after him for not liking candy corn, because to me that was the part that I was like,
"Oh, that's on
come
point.
on, man."
Yeah,
but here's the biggest problem with his dislike of the candy corn. With what he said, I don't like all of the candy corn, like all of it, and that's where he's wrong.
Is there good candy corn?
Yeah, the white tip part of the candy corn is disgusting. That could go away, but the orange and the yellow, that's good.
So you break your tips off the candy corn before you eat them.
I take the white tip and I put it between my teeth, break it off, and then spit it out like a sunflower seed, and then proceed to eat the rest of the candy corn.
You're like a little kid that won't eat the crust of his peanut butter sandwich. Like,
yeah, I'm like a little chipmunk, you know?
I used to make fun of our friend Chad because even in high school, he would not eat the crusts on his sandwiches.
Yeah, and I doubt he still does to this day.
I mean, if you make
he
it
was
into
passionate. Yeah.
Crusts off the candy corn. Got to get that off.
Yeah.
On to Better at Life.
All right. My Better at Life than Skip Bayless this week are for my bees because what they did for me was amazing. So like you were getting at, Brandon, the upside to the bees perishing is I was going to have to leave like 95% of the honey in the hive for them to have to eat throughout the winter, right? To stay warm and all that stuff. Well, now that they're dead, that's all mine. So Brittany and I have been today, for the first time ever, processing honeycomb and trying to extract the honey, which turns out is both fun, messy, and a little harder than you might think. I even see her in the background wearing her apron right now. Yeah, yeah. And it's delicious. It is so incredibly like light colored and blonde. Like I haven't seen anything like it in the store. And it's just, we have the box that I lifted up. I looked up online, like, well, how much does a full box usually weigh? Because it's freaking stuffed.
Yeah.
Right? 90 pounds.
Wow.
90 pounds of honey. So to all of my friends and family, guess what you're getting for Christmas?
Honey.
I
can't wait.
Yeah.
To find out if I'm really one of your friends.
Although, in fairness, I've already asked you whether you would prefer filtered or unfiltered honey. Honey is just
and for you to come back and say, well, too bad you're getting neither, that would be a jerk move.
It's not off the table.
My Better at Life this week, I'm giving it to Matt freaking Hasselbeck because man, oh man. Thanks to Seahawks.com for streaming that live. You know, if you only got to see that, if you were at the game, one, you were in for a treat. But for the rest of the fans to miss out on that would have been a shame. Matt Hasselbeck, man, if he could have been in the locker room at halftime instead of out on the field, he could have fired up that team. I was ready to put Matt in at quarterback after his speech at the Ring of Honor ceremony.
Some people might think of this as an individual award. This is not an individual award. You'll see my name up there, but don't just think of me. Think of those teammates that did it with me. I could have never done it without them. Bobby Ingram, Daryl Jackson, Robbie Tobeck, Chris Gray, Walt Hutch, Locke, Max Strong, Sean Alexander, Lofa Tatupu, Marcus Trufant, Big Play Babs. The list goes on and on and on. Last thing for me. It was such an honor to wear number 8, to be your quarterback, to play here. My wife and I, our family, you guys, we love you, your family. Go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks, Matt.
Oh, go Hawks, Matt. I did not watch it live. I was watching the halftime show, and it was hilarious to watch the halftime folks like try to do their show with Matt standing behind him, talking like that. Uh-huh. It was like, why are we even? Will you please just
turn the camera around because there's clearly something more important going on behind you.
Yes, by a lot. So just a tremendous speech, well deserved. The admission to the Ring of Honor, and you might not have been wrong about putting Matt in at quarterback and having that be an upgrade right now.
I think we could still get one good half out of Matt Hasselbeck. Sign him to that one-day contract, put him to work, and for that, Matt Hasselbeck, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Totally agree, man. What a great way to end the show after a tough loss. And thank you to the Seahawks for having Matt for that game. We needed that. We really needed that.
Got Matt for that game. We got Mike Holmgren, the big show going in this upcoming game against the Jaguars. Yeah. And you know what? That's a good way to end the show, but I've got an even better way. We thank our members of the flock at $12 and above.
Because we couldn't do this alone. All the teammates, The list goes on and on.
Keith Ketover, a.k.a. Flocktimus Prime, University of Cybertron, Little Flockers, roll out.
DCH from Sparks, Nevada, the University of Montana Grizzlies.
Annalisa Mickelson, a.k.a. Mrs. Doug Baldwin, New York, New York, undergrad, University of North Carolina, Greensboro, graduate school, Brooklyn College.
Eric Trench, rooting for the Seahawks out of Renton, Washington, graduated from Eastern Washington University.
Jameson Holman from Murray, Utah, representing Mississippi State University. Hail State and go Hawks.
Gary Blum from Chappaqua, New York, and the University of Pennsylvania, your 2016 Pick'em League champion.
Ron Pepper, UNLV Runnin' Rebels, San Francisco, California.
Hong Kong! Hong Kong! Hong Kong!
Ella Esparza, Woodway, Texas, Yale University, and Sam Houston State, Eat 'em Up Cats.
Lisa in Seattle.
Kevin Stengham, Keene, Texas.
Samuel Gelber, NoHo, California.
David Van Cleve, Camas, Washington, home of the Papermakers.
Leo Jose, Luleå, Sweden, from Luleå Eskimos and Renkomaren front.
Paul from San Diego.
Aaron Fisher, a.k.a. Lock It and Put It in Your Pocket, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey Seahawkers, my name is Garen Taylor. I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, North Idaho. Hashtag on the roads. Go Hawks.
And now we go to our list of $12 supporters and above, and we're starting with Christina in Manassas, Virginia, Brian in Texas, Ross in Eureka, California, Craig in Camas, Roe in Federal Way, Sven in Berlin, Deutschland, James in Linwood, Young in Anchorage, Jared in Missoula, Hector in Issaquah, Becca in Manhattan Beach, Tim in Austin, Christian in Oslo, Norway, Kathy in Eureka, California, Jonathan in Ridgefield, Joshua in Seven Oaks, England, Jeremy in Garabo, Puerto Rico, Brandon in Huntersville, North Carolina, JC in Horsford, England, Kevin in Onaway, Idaho, Chris in Spokane, Keegan in Colorado Springs, Mitchell in El Dorado Hills, California, James in Beau Arts, Jake in Seattle, Pepper in Greenville, South Carolina, Jeffrey in Kansas City, Kari in Rochester, Brian in Berlin, Connecticut, Connie in Gothenburg, Sweden, Taylor in South Cleellum, Tracy in Kaneohe, Hawaii, Eric in Seattle, Glenn in Ocoee, Florida, Marvin in Riverdale, Utah, Dean in the Greater Hoctum, Kevin in Surrey, BC, John C. in the Greater Hoctum, John W. in New York, Shoko in New York, Scott in Bakersfield, Patrick in Sacramento, Bryson in Eltopia, Greg in Seattle, Jeremy in Federal Way, Ivy in Renton, Ben in Wrexham, Wales, Joshua in Candor, New York, Kenneth in Hutto, Texas, Kevin in the Greater Hoctum, Jay in Monroe, Eric in Clovis, California, Mark in Bexley Heath, England, Mario in Seattle, Ryan in Chatham, England, Cora in Ditters, Deutschland, Anders in Vila, Denmark, Warren in Dundee, Oregon, Marlon in the Greater Hoctum, Chris in Austin, Preston in Phoenix, Amy in Squim, Marcus in Potts Point, Australia, Richard in Killeen, Texas, Joseph in Vancouver, Dan in the Greater Hoctum, Corey in Vancouver, Kevin in Great Glen, England, Taylor in Spokane, Kyle in the Greater Hoctum, Norma in the Greater Hoctum, Ryan in Salt Lake City, Joshua in the Greater Hoctum, JC in University Place, Chris in Billings, Montana, DJ in Menifee, California, Jamie in Oswestry, England, Jalen in Minneapolis, Terrence in Seattle, Eugene in Henderson, Nevada, Daniel in Post Falls, Idaho, Jerv in Bristow, Virginia, John F. in Toano, Virginia, Jason in Panama City, Florida, Ian in Seattle, Chad in Lexington Park, Maryland, Bridget in Redmond, Ryan in Crestview, Florida, Hannah in Chesterfield, Virginia, Brian in Omak, Jeff in Gilbert, Arizona, Johnny D. in Silverton, Oregon, Julio in Nililani, Hawaii, Gordon in Whitefish, Montana, Eric in Kalispell, Montana, Kayla in Vancouver, Tanner in Kalispell, Montana, Terrell in Atlanta, Ryan in Fairbanks, Nathaniel in Solna, Sweden, Freddie in Longview, Matt in the Greater Hoctum, Devante in Boise, Idaho, Leland in South Jordan, Utah, Sean in Cascade, Iowa via Kalispell, CJ in David City, Nebraska, and Michael in Somerville, South Carolina. Thank you all for your continued support of this show. You know, the way you led into that, Adam, I kind of wanted to say all the names like Matt Hasselbeck, but I wouldn't have a voice here to close the show. It wouldn't have happened.
Well, what that was, Brandon, I know we're new at this podcasting thing. That was what they call a setup. Like I figured you just press play after that, and then the names would just start playing, and it would have been epic. But thanks for screwing it up and letting us know how that it would have been hard for you to say them all.
No, I'm saying that the way you set it up, people may have been expecting me to do a Matt Hasselbeck style call out for all those because I was that motivated by Matt's speech. And then I got to it and I thought I started looking at the list of names and for as long as the list is, I knew that I could not keep pace with our Ring of Honor quarterback.
No, and you also have things to do.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.